All right, let's dive right in. We're going to go behind the scenes today on a huge battle, a battle for the future of finance. This is a story all about crypto regulation, the big banks, and a fight that just took a turn nobody saw coming.
So, get this. What was supposed to be the biggest crypto market structure bill in US history, it just completely fell apart, right at the last minute. And yeah, on the surface, that looks like a massive loss for the industry, right? But what if I told you that behind the scenes, a lot of people were actually breathing a sigh of relief? Kind of weird, huh? So let's figure out what really happened here.
Okay, so it turns out this bill collapsing wasn't a failure at all. It was more like a necessary intervention. The crypto world pretty much immediately realized that letting this thing pass would have been way, way worse than having no bill. Honestly, they dodged a massive bullet. So you're probably wondering, what was so bad about it? Why was it so dangerous? Well, you know how they say the devil's in the details? We're about to get into those details. Because once you start looking at the actual text, you see exactly why all those alarm bells were going off. This is where it gets good.
Look, this thing wasn't just sloppy, it was fundamentally against everything on-chain finance is about. It was designed to cripple DeFi, decentralized finance. It would have actually weakened the regulators who are supposed to be providing oversight. And the real kicker? It would have given the government a blank check to snoop on all your financial data. That's not regulation, people. That's just control.
And here's the most ironic part. The bill included what was essentially a ban on tokenized stocks. A ban. And this is happening at the exact same time that giants on Wall Street are tripping over themselves to tokenize everything they can get their hands on. So the bill was literally trying to outlaw a future that even the old guard knows is coming. It makes no sense.
Okay, so this all leads to the big question, right? If this bill was so obviously bad for innovation, so counterproductive, who is actually pushing for it? What was the real game here? Well, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room. So yeah, who is the real elephant in the room? With so much on the line, who stands to lose the most if we get fair, clear, pro-innovation crypto rules? The answer probably won't shock you, but the sheer scale of it, that just might.
$6 trillion. That's 6 with 12 zeros. And no, that's not some random number I just made up. That is the actual figure that the CEO of Bank of America said could flow right out of their banks and into stablecoins if the right kind of crypto laws get passed. All of a sudden, things start to make a whole lot more sense, don't they?
And just so you know, we're not making this up. Here's the quote. This isn't just some theory. It's a straight-up admission from one of the top guys in all of banking. They see stablecoins, these digital dollars, as a direct existential threat to their entire business model. So here's the bottom line. When you hear the big banks talking about how they need to protect consumers from crypto, what they're really saying is they need to protect their monopoly. Their whole strategy isn't to have a real debate. It's just to delay, to confuse, and to keep things just the way they are for as long as they possibly can. And to really get why they're so spooked, you just get a quick reminder of how old school banking actually works. It's all built on this thing called fractional reserve banking. And all that means is that the bank doesn't actually have all your money on hand. They lend most of it out. So think about it. On one hand, you've got the banks with their fractional reserves. But on the other hand, you have properly regulated stablecoins, which are 100% backed by super safe stuff like US treasuries. That means, and this is the crazy part, holding a good stablecoin can actually be safer than keeping your cash in the bank. And that idea is absolutely terrifying to the entire banking industry. But hey, here's the good news in all of this. While all this drama is unfolding in Washington, innovation isn't just sitting around waiting for permission. The market, the tech, the culture, it's all just charging ahead anyway. I mean, check this out. You've got big players like Bitminer partnering up with MrBeast. We're talking about maybe the single biggest creator for Gen Z and Gen Alpha on the entire planet. And this isn't just some silly marketing gimmick. No, this is a really smart, strategic play to build the rails for the next wave of users. This is what real adoption actually looks like. And it's not just about pop culture either. The really smart money? They're watching the deep tech being built where AI and crypto meet. You've got projects like Tau and BitTensor creating these new decentralized AI networks. So even with all the regulatory confusion, the real fundamental innovation, it just keeps on rolling. All right, so as we start to pull this all together, what's the big picture? What's the main takeaway? Well, you can really boil this whole thing down to a simple fight. It's the forces of delay versus the forces of innovation.
And let's just be crystal clear about this. Regulation is being held up not because crypto is some scary, dangerous thing. It's being held up because these powerful old guard institutions feel threatened. They're threatened by the competition, by the efficiency, and they're using every ounce of their influence to try and slow down what feels pretty inevitable. And that leaves us with one final question, one thing to really think about. In this tug of war between legacy systems digging in their heels and this wave of unstoppable innovation, who's going to win? And maybe more importantly, who gets to decide what the future of finance actually looks like? Because that's the real